What actually is a 501c3? 501c3 is a federal tax classification created by the IRS. This means that the IRS has recognized the organization as organized for charitable, religious, educational, or scientific purposes, and eligible for federal income tax exemption, and eligible to receive tax-deductible donations. Only the IRS can grant or revoke 501c3 status. States do not grant 501c3 status. Only the federal government does. With Florida as an example, in what they do and don't do as a state, Florida does several separate but related things. The state will recognize a corporate existence. When registered with the Division of Corporations, SONBIS, Florida creates legal entities, nonprofit corporations, for-profit corporations, LLCs, etc. This is just legal existence and not a tax status. When you see a Florida nonprofit record that says something like Nonprofit Corporation, 501c3, that means that the organization claims or represents that it is a 501c3, according to the IRS. Florida is not granting that status. It is just recording what the organization claims it is. Florida has its own tax system: sales tax, use tax, reemployment tax, etc. The Florida Department of Revenue will require a nonprofit to apply separately for Florida sales tax exemption and any other applicable state tax exemptions based on the belief that the federal status is accurate. Florida often asks, "Are you a valid 501c3, currently in good standing with the IRS?" If yes, they may grant state-level tax exemptions based on that answer. Florida is recognizing IRS status, not creating it. This brings the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services charities into the discussion. If the organization solicits donations, then Florida usually requires registration as a charitable organization. This is consumer protection and fundraising oversight. They may list IRS status 501c3. This is a representation of what was claimed. It is not the source of the status. Florida agencies often mirror or display the IRS classification. The organization self-reports it, or Florida has verified it against IRS data. But Florida is not the authority that grants it. Think of Florida as saying, "This entity claims to be recognized as a 501c3 by the IRS." The only authoritative source, the only legally controlling source is the IRS as documented on a valid determination letter, or the IRS tax-exempt organization search database. If the IRS database says, "not tax-exempt or revoked or never recognized," then the organization is not a 501c3, no matter what Florida's website says. Florida records aren't automatically updated against the IRS database. If the organization changed status, or the organization misrepresented or misunderstood, or the exemption was revoked, then the Florida record is simply old or unverified. Think in layers. Florida creates the entity. IRS grants or denies tax-exempt status. Florida may acknowledge or rely on that IRS status for state purposes. Florida cannot create or fix IRS status. The critical legal takeaway: if the IRS does not recognize the entity as a 501c3, then it is not one, regardless of what Florida's website says it is. If someone is soliciting donations claiming 501c3 status without valid IRS recognition, then that can be fraud. Donor tax deductions depend on IRS status, not Florida labels. Grant eligibility depends on IRS status. Some legal protections depend on real tax-exempt status. Misrepresentation can carry civil and sometimes criminal consequences. Bottom line in one sentence: Florida can record, rely on, or display 501c3 status, but only the IRS can grant it, and only the IRS determines whether it truly exists.
If you like this content, then kindly hit like, subscribe, and share. Caesar commands it.